Episode 3, Whispers in the Grove. Sabrina followed the trail of golden leaves deeper into the forest, Noah close behind. Each step took them further from familiar territory, the usual woodland sounds fading into an otherworldly silence broken only by a faint, musical humming. Through her connection with Quill, she noticed plants along their path bending away, as if retreating from something powerful ahead. "The readings are getting stronger," Noah said, checking his handheld detector. "Whatever's causing this, it's big." They pushed through a thick curtain of mist, and Sabrina's breath caught in her throat. Before them stretched a circular clearing unlike anything she'd seen before, the Gilded Grove. Every tree gleamed like polished metal, their golden leaves creating a shimmering canopy that transformed sunlight into honey-colored beams. Noah's detector spun wildly, its display flickering before going dark with a defeated whine. He tucked it away with a frown. So much for technology. Studying the grove's layout, Sabrina's mind flashed to the constellation map she'd found during her research. "Noah, look at the tree placement. It matches that star chart from the library archives." Their footsteps sent ripples of golden light across the forest floor, like walking on the surface of a magical pond. The trees seemed to whisper, their voices just on the edge of comprehension. Sabrina caught fragments, balance repeated often, along with something about doors. A circle of mushrooms caught her attention, their caps pulsing with the same golden light as the trees. Quill's essence flowed strongly through them, making them glow brighter at her approach. The pattern they formed was unmistakable, the same symbol she'd found on that mysterious sprout in the park. Drawing closer to the central tree, Sabrina recognized its distinctive bark pattern, spiraling upward in intricate whorls that matched the ancient trunk of the Tree of Seasons. She'd seen it before, not just in sections of the tree but in her research sketches and dream fragments. When her fingers brushed the weathered trunk, images flooded her mind, the grove alive with magical energy, humming with power like 1,000 whispered songs, figures in elaborate ceremonial robes conducting ancient rituals beneath the golden canopy while constellations danced overhead. The vision faded as the trees began to pulse in unison, their rhythm matching the familiar energy signature of the Tree of Seasons, a heartbeat she'd grown to know intimately through her work as guardian. Noah pulled out his notebook, sketching rapidly while casting wary glances at the thickening mist that crept like ghostly fingers around the grove's edges. "There's something carved here," Sabrina said, brushing away centuries of growth to reveal ancient runes that seemed to shimmer beneath her touch. She traced them with her finger, translating the worn symbols that tingled against her skin. "When balance falls, doors open wide. That can't be good." A sudden surge of magic sent golden pollen showering down around them, each mote glowing like a tiny star. Where it landed, the air seemed to ripple and tear like worn fabric, showing brief glimpses of Hallowville's past. She caught flashes of magical battles illuminating night skies, ritual circles burned into ancient earth, and faces twisted with conflict that felt uncomfortably familiar. "Sabrina." Noah's voice drew her attention to a nearby tree, its trunk scarred in ways that made her magical senses prickle with unease. "These marks are fresh." He pointed to clean cuts in the bark, along with an iridescent residue from magical sampling that still sparkled with active energy. "Someone's been collecting specimens." Her stomach tightened as recognition dawned. The artifact collector. These are their methods exactly. She could almost feel Quill's essence stirring anxiously through the nearby plants, confirming her suspicions. The grove's whispers grew more insistent, a chorus of urgent voices just beyond comprehension, and Sabrina's research clicked into place like puzzle pieces finally finding their home. "This is one of the magical hubs mentioned in those old texts, a stabilization point for regional magic. It works with places like the Tree of Seasons to maintain balance." She could feel the connection now, a web of power linking this ancient place to her beloved tree. The central tree shuddered, and a single golden leaf drifted down into Sabrina's palm. The moment she touched it, she felt the Tree of Seasons respond, its energy reaching across town to connect with this ancient place. The grove's whispers coalesced into a final, clear message: prepare for the convergence. Sabrina knelt beside the ancient tree, her attention caught by an unusual glimmer between its massive roots. "Noah, there's something here." She brushed away a layer of golden leaves, revealing what looked like broken glass nestled in the earth. Noah crouched beside her, helping clear away centuries of accumulated debris. "Careful with those edges." His fingers worked methodically around the pieces, exposing more fragments that sparkled with an inner light. The soil seemed to part easily around the shards, as if the earth itself wanted to release them. As Sabrina lifted the first shard, magic tingled through her fingertips and up her arm like gentle static electricity. The piece was cool to the touch despite the warmth of the day, and impossibly clean for something buried in soil, its surface pristine as if it had been polished moments ago. When she held it up, the filtered sunlight passing through it cast strange, moving patterns that danced across the grove's floor, creating shapes that almost resembled ancient runes before dissolving into new forms. Nearby flowers swayed, their heads turning to follow the light show, petals unfurling wider than natural. She felt Quill's essence stirring through them, drawn to the mysterious display, causing faint whispers of golden energy to ripple through the surrounding plant life. "These aren't just broken glass," she murmured, gathering more pieces. Each one hummed with energy, and when she brought them close together, they resonated like tuning forks striking the same note, creating an otherworldly harmony that made her skin prickle. The sound harmonized perfectly with the grove's ambient magic, causing ripples in the air that she could almost see. The plants around her feet rustled with purpose, vines twisting and leaves trembling in an intricate dance, and she felt Quill's guidance through them. Following this botanical suggestion, Sabrina began arranging the fragments in a circle on a flat stone. The pieces lifted slightly as she positioned them, floating millimeters above the surface as if eager to reconnect, their edges glowing with a faint blue luminescence where they nearly touched. "They're moving on their own," Noah observed, notebook forgotten in his hand as he watched, his usual skepticism replaced by wonder. The final piece trembled in Sabrina's palm before slipping free, drawn to its proper place like a magnet finding true north. As it clicked into position, golden light exploded outward, briefly turning the entire grove into a chamber of pure radiance that seemed to pulse with ancient power. When the light faded, a perfectly restored monocle lay before them, its rim decorated with delicate etchings of leaves, snowflakes, flowers, and harvest symbols that seemed to shift and change as she watched, each one illuminated with a subtle inner glow that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. Sabrina lifted the monocle carefully, holding it up to her eye. Her gasp echoed through the grove. "Oh my gods!" Brilliant streams of energy crisscrossed the landscape like rivers of light, pulsing with raw magical power in colors she had no names for. The golden trees blazed like beacons, each one a nexus point reaching out toward distant horizons, their branches trailing ethereal threads of magic into the sky. Through the lens, she could see how Quill's essence wove through the root system beneath, creating intricate patterns that pulsed in harmony with the ley lines above. "My equipment's working again," Noah said, checking his detector, which was now emitting a steady series of chirps. "These readings, they match exactly what you're seeing, don't they?" His voice held a mix of wonder and concern that mirrored her own feelings. She nodded, turning slowly to take in the full scope of the magical landscape. Many of the connections between nexus points flickered weakly or had gone dark entirely, creating a web of broken pathways through the magical infrastructure, like a cosmic spider's web with missing strands. Each break seemed to whisper of ancient magic disrupted, of balance thrown askew. When she faced Hallowville, her heart sank. The town's magical framework looked like damaged circuitry, with unstable points of energy bubbling up where they'd found portals forming, threatening to burst like overcharged batteries. Through the lens, she could finally see the true connection between the grove and the Tree of Seasons, a vital channel of power now marred by dark interruptions that couldn't be natural, pulsing with an ominous energy that made her stomach clench. The tree itself stood as a beacon of mixed energies, its aura flickering between autumn gold and spring green in an unsettling dance. "Here, look at this." She handed the monocle to Noah, who let out a low whistle as he peered through it, his eyes widening at the spectacle. The artifact seemed to respond to his touch, its etchings briefly glowing brighter. There's movement in the ley lines, he said, tracking something with the lens. Like shadows swimming through the energy currents. Similar to our portal visitor. The monocle grew warm in his hand as he followed their movements, the etchings on its rim beginning to glow in response to whatever he was seeing. The shadows darted and weaved through the magical streams like fish in a celestial river. Taking back the lens, Sabrina focused on locations of recent magical disturbances around town. The residual energy signatures formed a clear pattern, all leading toward the town square like tributaries flowing to a river. More troubling were the traces of spring magic she detected, attempting to overwrite the Halloween energy that had protected Hallowville for generations, their conflicting energies creating dangerous ripples in the magical fabric of the town. She could see how the spring magic seemed to pulse with an almost deliberate rhythm, as if guided by an unseen hand. The lens suddenly pulsed in her hand, projecting a brief but vivid image of multiple portals forming around the town's perimeter. When the vision faded, the monocle continued humming softly, now linked to the grove's ancient power. Sabrina's heart quickened as Noah's equipment burst to life with urgent chirps. Through the fragmented lens, she spotted something that made her skin crawl, sickly green traces of energy weaving between the golden trees like toxic smoke, a stark contrast to the grove's natural radiance. "This way," she said, following the trail. Noah kept pace beside her, his detector's signals growing stronger with each step. The device's urgent chirps echoed through the unnatural silence of the grove, making her skin prickle. They came upon a cluster of ancient trees where the earth had been recently disturbed, dead leaves hastily scattered to hide the evidence. Through the lens, these trees' auras flickered weakly, their natural golden glow dimmed to a pale shadow, like candles struggling against a bitter wind. Nearby plants drooped as Quill's essence rippled through them, reflecting a deep distress that matched Sabrina's growing unease, their leaves trembling despite the still air. Noah knelt and brushed aside the leaves with practiced care, revealing what looked like sophisticated magical equipment nestled in the dark soil. "Look at these." He carefully lifted several crystal vials, still warm to the touch, their surfaces etched with intricate runes that seemed to shift in the filtered sunlight. The craftsmanship matches those artifacts stolen from the historical society. Sabrina raised the lens again, turning slowly to take in the full scope of the grove. Her breath caught as a pattern emerged through the magical veil, each weakened tree corresponded to a different seasonal power, their energies diminished in precise, calculated ways. Summer's warmth, winter's frost, spring's renewal, and autumn's transformation, all systematically harvested, leaving behind hollow echoes of their former strength. "They're collecting the essence of each season," she murmured, her voice tight with concern. This wasn't random theft. The collector knew exactly what they were after. A trail of crystalline residue caught her eye, leading deeper into the grove like a malevolent breadcrumb path. Through the lens, she watched these crystals pulse faintly, each one drawing in threads of the grove's natural energy like tiny magical leeches, their hunger seemingly endless. The barriers that had protected this place for centuries were being slowly eaten away, leaving gaps in the magical fabric that made her magical senses ache. "Recent tracks," Noah observed, pointing to scuff marks and broken branches that told of hurried movement. His detector beeped rapidly near a patch of disturbed air that rippled like heat waves over hot pavement. "Portal energy. That's how they're coming and going without being noticed." A half-finished ritual circle carved into the earth stopped them both short, its crude lines violating the grove's natural harmony. Sabrina knelt to examine the symbols, her stomach turning at how they twisted spring and Halloween magic together in ways that felt fundamentally wrong, like a discordant note in a familiar song. Through the lens, she could see dangerous instabilities crackling where the circle's lines intersected, sending out sparks of conflicting energy. The plants around them suddenly shifted, their movements guided by Quill's essence, recreating someone's path through the grove with an eerie precision that made Sabrina shiver. "They're not just stealing power," she realized, watching the pattern unfold like a ghostly dance. "They're systematically remapping the grove's magical circulation." Noah compared the locations on his notebook's map, his jaw tightening as he made connections. These tampered areas align perfectly with where the portals have been appearing in town. They're using the grove's power to force the portals open. A piece of paper caught in some branches fluttered down, covered in dense mathematical formulas that seemed to writhe on the page. Sabrina's blood ran cold as she decoded the calculations, recognizing the sinister implications. These are equations about magical convergence points, focused on the equinox. She passed the paper to Noah with trembling fingers. They're trying to trigger some kind of massive magical shift. Through the lens, she watched the grove's weakened energy flowing toward Hallowville like rivers of dim light, creating ripples of disruption in the town's magical field that pulsed with sickly intensity. Each disturbance corresponded exactly to places where spring magic had been growing unnaturally strong, forming a web of corruption that threatened to strangle the town's delicate magical balance. The setting sun stretched the golden tree's shadows across the ground. Through the lens, these shadows formed clear lines of power, all converging on a single point in town, the Tree of Seasons.